on Real Talk with Jean Price. Upcoming on Real Talk with Jean Price.
Become that warrior to that other sister. I dare everybody that's listening to your voice, that I can see the feed, that's listening to my voice. I dare each one of these sisters to get behind somebody else. We don't know what they're facing.
The pressure to do it all right is real. And there's not one mother out there, there's not one mother today in this audience, I bet, who has never felt guilty because she yelled at her kid, or she fed her kid junk food, or she went somewhere without her kid, for example, to work. And remember, this is all just the mom part of having it all. You're also expected to be a successful businesswoman, a loving spouse, a devoted daughter, a good friend, and please do not remember the most important of all things. Look like you've never given life in the first place. The perfect mother does not exist. She's a Frankenstein. She's put together by old 18th century ideas. Instagram images with lots of filters on them, bad Hollywood movies, and friends who fail to tell the truth about their own struggles.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me on Real Talk. I am your host, Jean Price, and I can't wait to get into this discussion tonight. It's going to be honest, it's going to be open, and most importantly, it's going to be real. But we just want to remind you to welcome your guests. We want you to like, we want you to comment, we want you to share. And don't forget, we have our Real Talk t-shirts. We're still taking orders. So anybody that's interested, please send us an email to sobeitmedia.com. And most importantly, we are so grateful that we are part of the Inspired Living Network. That is such an awesome position to be in. And we wanted you to just join us. We have a great show tonight. And we have two wonderful guests that are going to be joining me tonight. And in this discussion, we want you to tell your friends, we want you to tell your moms, your cousins, your aunties. We want you to tell your sisters. You don't want to miss tonight's show. It is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome our guests tonight. We have Dr. Akia Blandon and we have Miss Rachel Maurice, who's joining us tonight. Welcome, ladies.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Doing very well.
Good. Thank you both for being on Real Talk. Listen, I think this is going to be a great discussion because we're going to kind of go real deep and come back around. But thank you so much. But I'm going to start with you, Rachel. Please, thank you again for being on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me again. So my name is Rachel. I am a wife. I am a mother. I am a truth seeker. I am a child of God. I feel like I wear many hats. And so it's just an honor to be here. And I'm looking forward to having some of this honest, raw conversation about motherhood.
Awesome. Thank you. What about you, Dr. Blandon? Tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Akia Blandon. I'm a doctor of nursing practice. And so what that means is I'm a nurse practitioner and I function providing primary care to patients who need it. I am a mother of 5 amazing children, and I am too a truth seeker. I'm a believer, and I'm a child of God. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. But listen, those are great attributes from both of you. Let's get right into our discussion tonight. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Blandon. Please tell me, what did your parents teach you about being a mom? I know we have.
I think that's super loaded. I don't think I got a lesson on how to be a mom. I think some of the greatest lessons I learned what not to do or what to do was by observation. I can't tell you that my parents ever sat down and said, this is what you do, or this is what you don't do, because my mom was learning herself.
Yeah.
So it was kind of trial and error. And I'm the oldest of 5 daughters. So let's suffice to say that there was a lot of error.
I get it. What about you, Rachel?
So for me, I have so many strong women in my family, and I had a lot of great examples. And my mother was always very vocal about motherhood. However, what the conversations that we didn't have was, the not so great days, and how it's not okay. It is okay to not be perfect. I think I was chasing this idea of perfection in motherhood because of me not seeing any vulnerability, me not having, those transparent conversations. So it's like, yeah, I'm seeing these great examples, I'm having these great conversations, but can we talk about the bad days? Can we talk about the days where you're too tired or you're defeated or you're overwhelmed? So that definitely was an eye opener for me when I became a mother.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm a mom of three daughters. They're all grown. My oldest is 30, will be 39 this year. And I think for me was understanding that it was okay to fail. Can we kind of talk about that a little bit? Because I think my expectation, I was very young when I became a mom. I was 16. And as I got older, of course, but still, I always had this misconception, to your point, Rachel, that I had to be perfect, or I had everything I said had to be perfect. Let's kind of talk about some misconceptions of motherhood. What about for you, Dr. Bland?
So I think honestly, the right and the permission to fail, the right and the permission to mess it up, the right and the permission not to have the answers are hard come lessons. Those lessons don't come easily, right? As women of color, we're always taught to be strong and we
Yes.
got to handle it, right? And showing vulnerability, especially to our children, is not a show of strength.
Mm,
Mhm, mhm.
So I think in time with education, learning that it was okay to just be flesh. It was okay to just be not okay. And guess what? I've learned, because my children are adults as well, it has made my children respect me on a
mm,
whole different level because of my humanity.
mhm.
So I,
Mm.
I I think that anytime I have the privilege of speaking with younger moms, I give them the permission to leave the house messy.
Wow.
If they care enough about you to be in your home, then they should be real okay with a sock or a toy out of place. And if
Wow.
you gotta
Wow.
be that concerned, they don't need to be in your space.
Wow. That's powerful. That's powerful. What about for
Yeah.
you, Rachel?
No, I agree with that. A lot of what was said resonated with me because I think that, having conversations like this now is so important. Like it's a safe space that I don't think a lot of mothers have. And, I have two smaller boys. My youngest is going to be 6 and my oldest is 9. So we're still in the developmental stage. And, when we talk about failure, it's not even so much failure, it's growth. You're doing the best with what you have and
Absolutely.
you're learning. And so when you give yourself that grace, when
Hmm.
you allow yourself that room to say, you know what, I'm human and I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm providing shelter, I'm providing food, and I am genuinely wholeheartedly putting my heart into raising these children. It
Hmm.
changes your perspective because there is no right or wrong, you know what I mean? Like obviously outside of abuse and those extreme
Right.
cases, but motherhood is just a journey that is so fluid and comes with so many different spaces that you can't fit everything into one box. And
Right.
so I think that is what I've learned or I'm learning as, we go on.
Yeah. Angela, one of our guests, just chimed in and she's agreeing with what you both are saying. And she said, absolutely. And it's really true. I often say when before pandemic, I used to travel a lot and speak to women's groups. There was no manual to what you both even saying. There is no manual to say, when they get this age, you do this, or when they get this age. There were so many surprises for me in becoming a mom. And I think one of the greatest things that came out of it was not just being a mom for me, was that I got saved. And when the Lord
Mm,
found me, oh my goodness, I was so grateful that God, I was so grateful that God found me. I mean, I know it was in the nick of time for me in my life.
yes.
How has being a Christian mom been for you? What about for you, doctor?
Honestly, where would I be without the Lord? Without sounding too preachy, I am a single mom of 5.
Mm.
I have divorce in my story, and I was a teenage mom like you.
Mhm.
And I think having Christ as the foundation has, 1, kept me sane, 2, kept me encouraged,
Mm.
and 3, granted me wisdom and insight that I was neither taught nor understood. I raised 4 sons and a daughter, and doing that as a divorced mom is a challenge.
Yes.
So I'm afraid to think of where I'd be without Christ.
Mm.
And I too got saved right at the nick of time. I was 18 years old and I had just had my first child. And if it were not for that episode in the WIC Center
Mm.
and that believing woman sharing her faith with me, I think my children would not be successful as they are.
Mhm.
Maybe jail would have been in my story. Maybe some other type of negative interaction would have been in my story. But I have college graduates among my children. I have children working on master's degree, and I'm a woman with a GED. So Jesus did it all.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Awesome. What about for you, Rachel?
I'm sorry. I have goosebumps
I know.
because that's the testimony. No, it's so
Powerful.
encouraging
Yes.
to hear. Because that's how like he's made strong in our weaknesses, and
Yes.
this is the stories that you want to hear. Like we don't want to see the IG ready,
Mhm.
Pinterest moms
Right.
that like everything's always so put together because the truth is that's not everybody's reality. And for me, when
Mhm.
I feel so defeated, it's understanding that my children belong to the Lord.
Amen.
I just have stewardship over them. And
Mm.
I give it to him. You know what I mean? Like I just pray over them because again, we are navigating this life. Who would have ever thought we would have been in a pandemic? I
Exactly.
had to leave work and sacrifice, my career temporarily because of so many changes. And, I had just finished my master's. And so right now I'm working as a homemaker. I'm a teacher. I am a therapist. I am doing
Yes.
all these things
Yes.
that I never thought I would be doing. So when I had my moments of just feeling like, Lord, like what is going on? I was like, you know what? I am giving it to him.
Amen.
And on those rough days, he carries me through. And my children are all the better for it because I don't have it all figured out. And I'm not, without flaw, I'm just figuring out as I go along. So that my faith has played such a major role in my mothering. And I just don't know where I would be or the type of woman I would be if I didn't have that foundation.
Wow. Wow. Angela chimed in again and she said, I have no children of my own, but I have been in many children's lives, and I am not only take mine. I think she's going to continue to say it. And I'll come back to that, Angela, in a minute. But I wanted to talk to the two moms. I wanted to bring up something else. I wanted to talk about shame. And the reason, wait, I think I hit something on that hit something on that one. As we were saying, doctor, that you were a young mom and I was a young mom. And what I did, ladies, was that I was in my senior year of high school. I had my daughter at 16 and I was in my senior year, literally 6 months left. And I walked away. And I carried the burden and the shame of letting my daughters know, because I felt like a failure at that time. I felt like a failure that I did not get my high school diploma. And can I tell you the shame? I was so embarrassed. And I often would ask myself, why was I so embarrassed to feel that I didn't get the proper education? So I want to talk about shame just for a few minutes, and then I'll conclude and tell you the grace of God and how he blessed me in that way. Have any of you ever dealt with shame, Rachel?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I got pregnant with my first son, I was not married yet. And culturally for me, that was like a huge taboo. And I
Okay.
just remember feeling, as if I failed,
Mhm.
that I was already failing as a mother because I wasn't, quote unquote, bringing in a child into a stable, and I'm using air quotes because we come into motherhood with so many stereotypes of
Yes.
what the ideal picture of motherhood is supposed to be. And so we put this burden of shame on ourselves based on the ideals that we were either raised with or what we saw from society. And the truth of the matter is sometimes you don't even realize you're carrying that shame. And it's just building and you're feeling burden and you have anxiety and
Mm.
you have days of depression and you don't even know if you're allowed to say how you feel, even like having children. Like both my sons were delivered via C-section, and I carried the shame of not having a vaginal birth. And so many other women, oh well, you didn't really have a real labor and delivery. You took the shortcut, as if a C-section is an easy way to
Right.
deliver.
It's not.
But it's like there's so many examples of how we feel shame as mothers, and it's so unfortunate because I know that a lot of the things that I was told or things that I've heard, they're not always coming from a place of malice, but we are so critical and so hard on
Yeah,
ourselves and on
we
each other.
are. Yes.
And, we have to encourage and uplift and empower. And a lot of times you don't see that. And so when you talk about the concept of shame, like, yeah, we have to talk about that because there are women that are suffering in silence
Yes.
because they don't think anybody else is going through what they're going through. And the truth is we all have those days, those moments, we've all been through certain circumstances. So that definitely resonates with me.
Okay. What about for you, doctor?
I think our stories are very similar.
Wow.
I too left in my senior year.
Mm.
And I think the shame that I suffered with drove me to get the doctorate
Mm.
because I felt incomplete.
Mhm.
I think the shame of the choices that I made being the smart girl
Mhm.
drove me to pursue my doctorate.
Okay.
I think I learned that it was okay to fail, that it was okay to let it go at the feet of the cross.
Mm. Wow. 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 That's powerful. Wow. Both of you at this and this shame part, and I know I'm trying to move on to something else, but I can just sense that it really resonates with all of us. And there are some moms, and to Angela, whose women have allowed her to be a part of their lives for their children. Shame has been such a big part because I think even culturally, we're made to feel like we're supposed to be perfect sometimes. And I'm glad we're talking about that tonight because if I hadn't God found me, I wouldn't have had the strength. I went back to school at 40 years old. I'm 55 now and got my high school diploma. Literally. And I remember talking, being honest and telling my children about it. And just recently, ladies, I just shared that with my granddaughter. She's 9. And I just recently told her because I felt like I wanted her to know that story about me so she can know who I really am, but also see the grace of God and how God what he's done in my life as an entrepreneur, as, different things like that. Just still giving God all glory, honor, and praise. But shame can really, and I'm glad that you both were talking about it, it can really make you just stay low. And I'm glad you talked about anxiety, Rachel. Have you both, and Doctor, because Rachel mentioned it, but Doctor, have you ever dealt with anxiety just from trying to mother, if I can say that?
100%.
Yep.
I don't think that there's a woman walking who is in touch with herself that has not dealt with anxiety in one way or another. And I think that what happens, especially trying to balance and be all things to all people, right? Trying to balance career, education,
Mhm.
children,
Yeah.
home, just being able to do all of that, the anxiety can be debilitating if you
Mhm.
don't get a hold of it and get your mind right and
Right.
keep the main thing the main thing.
Mhm.
So anxiety, 100%.
Wow.
100%.
Wow. It's been a lot. Let me ask a question. In being a mom, one of the things that we do, we sacrifice a lot. What were some of the sacrifices you've made, Rachel?
Well, as I mentioned before, I'm currently not working because,
Right.
childcare.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was a major thing. And so, having a village around is like so important when you're raising kids, and when you don't have a village that is readily available and convenient, you realize, wow, like this is a lot. So I had to sacrifice work for, the short term in order to be hands-on with my children's rearing. And it is a blessing, and it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. But from a personal standpoint, there are days where you feel like, am I losing touch with me? Like, because yes, I'm a mother, but I'm also I'm a person outside of this role. So, and again, if you don't have those spaces to kind of share or vent or work through some of those personal things, it can overwhelm you. Anxiety, please. I had an anxiety attack about 4 years ago. I didn't even know it was that. I rushed to the ER. I thought I was having like chest pains and back pains, and
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this?
Yes.
And the man said, "Are you stressed?" And I was like, all the time. Like, I'm trying to
Who is it?
Like,
Right.
of course. And she's like, "Ma'am, I think you had an anxiety attack." And I'm like, what? That's something you see in the commercials. Like, I had no idea that this was a reality. And when I thought about it, I was like, wow, at the time, what I was juggling and what was on my heart. And, when we talk about faith, again, realizing that I cannot do it alone. And I had to release and lay it all at his feet, because I was killing myself trying to keep up with the expectations. And it just wasn't realistic.
Right. Definitely. What about you, doctor? Your sacrifices?
I think some of the biggest, or one of the biggest sacrifices that I made for my children is a relationship with an outside person from their father.
Okay.
I was very conscious in raising sons that I did not want them to see the parade of uncles.
Yes.
And I made the conscious decision not to enter into a relationship until just recently. So I stayed single on purpose to raise my children, because I needed them to understand what they meant to me, one, and two, I didn't want them confused by the parade of uncles.
That's good. That's good. Somebody in Colette Livingston, Colette, I know Colette, she just chimed in and said the same thing. She said, that's good. Because ladies, I think we all can relate to that kind of sacrifice is huge. Part of what happened when I was sexually abused as a child, and I'm not blaming my mom. Let me just give a disclaimer there. We're good. We have a great relationship. The past is the past. Let me say that. But that's exactly what happened, is that for whatever reason, it just happened that there was that so-called stepfather or uncle that took advantage of my mom being a single mom. And then I was the victim of sexual abuse for those 12 years. So, wow, those are huge sacrifices that were made. That's big.
Wait, again, I think we need to talk off of this show, because our stories. So the reason I needed to protect from the parade of uncles, because I wasn't protected from the parade of uncles.
Wow.
So I am a triumphant survivor of sexual abuse, not from one, not from two. And having sons and having a daughter, it was important for me to protect them with everything I had. And so that's the other part of that story.
Wow, that's huge. Wow. Rachel, do you find that raising sons, I know you don't have a daughter, you have two sons. What's it like raising a son? Because I had three daughters. I had Barbie dolls, gymnastics, all that. What's it like raising a son?
Oh my gosh, it's a colorful life. It's a colorful. I mean, when they tell you to stay within the lines, all. I mean, no, honestly, it is everything I could have imagined and some. It's challenging. It's difficult. It's a lot. It's a lot because, one, boys, right? High energy, always going. And then there's also the dynamic of, and you alluded to it as well, it's just raising them with integrity, raising them to be powerhouses, raising them with intention and purposefully. And being aware that, I'm one half of the equation, my husband is the other half, but as a woman, there are certain things that I need to mold into their character so that they can go out there and know how to treat women, how to
Absolutely.
be,
Right. Right.
influential in their communities. And, the narrative of, oh, let boys be boys, there are certain stigmas and there are certain things that we heard so much growing up that are just, they need to go. And it is our responsibilities to just be a part of that. Like, no, I need my sons to understand what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. And it's
Absolutely.
not okay. And I'm not going to say, well, because, if I had daughters, okay, well, the daughters should be raised to be prude and this and that, and boys can just be wild and free. Like, there are just certain things that I'm learning as I'm going through it now. And so it's a challenge, because I'm going against how I was raised. So I'm unlearning things in order to raise my own children. And it's a lot of forward and backward because you question it. Am I doing it the right way? This is different. This is unorthodox. This is how I was raised. So it's been a very interesting ride so far. But, again, I just pray over them every step of the way, because they are such amazing little princes. Like, I just pour life into them. I'm so proud to be their mother. I'm so proud that God chose me to be
Yes.
their mother. So, but it's an interesting ride.
Right, right. Well, we're going to hear from Doctor when we come back. We're going to take a commercial. And I want to know what it's like to raise. You have sons and a daughter, right?
Yes.
But when you talk about your sons, I want to talk about what's it like, because now we're in a whole different culture with, dealing with young Black men and so forth and so on. That's a whole nother way of having sons in a day like today. And before we go to commercial too, Tiffany chimed in and she said, as a mother, you make sacrifices every day. I literally just had this conversation with my neighbor who's a young mom who was having a breakdown because she was just overwhelmed. And all of us can relate. After our conversation, she felt better because she was able to vent. Sometimes that's all we need is someone to vent to. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Have you been enjoying the show? Make sure you comment and like. Tell us what you want to talk about. It might be featured on the next Real Talk with Jean Price. I haven't been live on Real Talk with Jean Price. Upcoming on Real Talk with Jean Price. Become that warrior to that other sister. I dare everybody that's listening to your voice, that I can see the feed, that's listening to my voice. I dare each one of these sisters to get behind somebody else. We don't know what they're facing.
The pressure to do it all right is real. And there's not one mother out there, there's not one mother today in this audience, I bet, who has never felt guilty because she yelled at her kid, or she fed her kid junk food, or she went somewhere without her kid, for example, to work. And remember, this is all just the mom part of having it all. You're also expected to be a successful businesswoman, a loving spouse, a devoted daughter, a good friend, and please do not remember the most important of all things. Look like you've never given life in the first place. The perfect mother does not exist. She's a Frankenstein. She's put together by old 18th century ideas, Instagram images with lots of filters on them, bad Hollywood movies, and friends who fail to tell the truth about their own struggles.
Welcome back to Real Talk. We are having a wonderful discussion we're leading up to Mother's Day on Sunday. But we're having a discussion tonight about motherhood. And I want to welcome back my guests, Dr. Akia Blandon and Rachel Maurice. Welcome back to Real Talk. Before we went to the commercial break, Stephanie Bridges had chimed in, and we were talking. Rachel was sharing with us what it's like raising boys, and I wanted Dr. Blandon to chime in about raising sons, and she has a daughter. But what's it like in the culture today when we're dealing with our Black men? What's that like?
I think that raising Black men in this culture is challenging, to say the least. It's fear evoking, to say the least. I raised my children in a predominantly white neighborhood because I had to move them from the hood because my oldest son thought he was going to join a gang and I thought I was going to catch a murder case.
Right.
So I moved them to what I understood was safe.
Right.
But by moving them to what I understood was safe, I put them in danger sometimes.
Wow.
They were the only 2 Black boys in the high school, to let you know this area that I moved to.
Wow.
And they were called the N-word and had never heard that before. What was interesting is they had brothers who were Irish and Italian, who were fierce protectors and would fight anybody who acted like that. But it didn't change the fact that I had to have those conversations.
Yeah.
If you get stopped, your hands have to be visible.
Yeah.
Keep your wallet in the cup holder. Always be overly respectful. It was that way then, and it's even worse now.
Yes.
I cry out for our young men. And I'm not fully persuaded that it's about fear of them or just the brownness of their hues. I don't know what the story is.
Right.
But the fear is real. And as a mother, I find that it is our responsibility to practice neology every single time they leave our doors.
Yes.
Because without being preachy, the Bible says the prayers of a righteous man avail much. And I believe that if we are willing to submit to God in prayer over the lives of our children, He will give us insights and words of wisdom, and we will call them at just the right time and tell them don't go or go.
Right.
So as a believing mother, I believe I have an advantage, but it doesn't change the difficulty of raising them.
Right.
And to speak to what my sister said earlier about reteaching roles, I had this thing. Every one of my sons can cook, and every one of my sons can do laundry, because nobody should ever make you have a hungry belly or dirty drawers. And that is literally what I taught them. Sorry.
Oh, that was good. We understand. Wow. Rachel, to what doctor is saying tonight, do you find with your older son, because he's 9, that you have to, I know he's young, but do you find that you have to have certain conversations with him as well?
Absolutely. You know, he's watching TV and he's seeing footage of George Floyd.
Yes.
And as much as you try to filter, you have to expose them to certain things because this is the world that they're growing up in.
Yes,
and I never thought I would be parenting through such a racially charged state. We learned it in school, and your Black History Month, and you're thinking everything's in the past, but the past is our present. And my soon to be 9-year-old is he's transitioning from being cute to now seemingly becoming a threat to someone. The same people that, oh, he's so adorable, are going to be the same one clutching their or, oh, he's a thug, or why is he in this area? And so it is such a conflicting thing as a mother,
Yes.
because talking about praying, I mean, you know, that anxiety,
Yes.
that the nerve, wondering, is my child going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time? Not because he's with the wrong crew of peers, but because he might be mistaken for anything else, because literally nowadays it doesn't even take much. And so conversations definitely have started. Books have been purchased to go over and read. And he's very inquisitive, and he's so bright already. So he comes to me and he asks questions, and I'm as honest as I can be. And it breaks my heart that I have to have these conversations, but they're necessary. It's literally a matter of life and death. So I try to equip him with the knowledge and the understanding that it has nothing to do with you. There are evil forces that are going on all over. And so you just be the best of who you are. That's it. And, I just send him out there. I just plead the blood of Jesus over my children.
That's right. That's right.
And, that's it.
Wow, that's powerful. It is hard raising our young Black and brown boys in a culture like today. And I'm so grateful that even the audience that's chiming in tonight, they're agreeing with you both that the neology is the way to go. And it really is. One of the other things I want to talk about is, when does it come to a point where self-care comes for us as moms? We do so much. We talked about in the beginning of the show. We do so much. Your wife, your mom, your doctor, your this, your that. But what about self-care for you, doctor?
So I think I am at a little bit of an advantage.
Right.
My youngest child is 21.
Okay.
My oldest is 28. I believe that an empty pitcher can't pour.
Mm.
And so I teach that if you don't fill you,
Mm.
you will give nothing to anyone else. And if mom is good, the whole house is good.
Right.
So even if it's small, short intervals, because when our children are differing ages, our self-care looks different. Self-care to a mom with toddlers might be getting up 20 minutes early and sitting in the shower with the steam going and just having her moment. Self-care to someone like me is a trip by myself to an island pre-COVID. So it's different, but give yourself permission to fill yourself. Because if you don't deposit in you, you have nothing to give.
So true. What about for you, Rachel? And I know your children are younger, so it'd be good to hear your perspective.
That's something that I just started to learn. I would say maybe in the past 2 years or so, because I had lost myself. I
Wow.
had gone down a rabbit hole of feeling like the only roles that were important
What's my
were that of being a mother and a wife. And I had completely lost touch with who Rachel was. And I was so angry and resentful, and I couldn't understand why, because I was empty. It was just pouring out of nothing. And looking back now, I'm so sad, because again, the conversations weren't had. So I was chasing this idea of perfection. I didn't have the forums to kind of say, listen, are you going through this? Because this is how I'm feeling. Like, I was ashamed to admit that I was kind of like burnt out.
Yes.
And when I had that anxiety attack,
Right.
that was
reality
the
check?
point.
Reality check. Right.
Like, okay, this is
Right.
literally physically
Yeah.
like, and so self-care for me turned into getting therapy, because mental health is so important.
It
And
is.
culturally for us, it's still taboo, it's still stigma. But my faith, finding a therapist that aligned with my own aesthetic for me, and just being able to do things like working out, losing weight, getting back into my social group and meeting up with friends, pre-COVID, and doing all the things that I love to do, and finding moments and making moments too, because you will
Yeah.
always find time for things that are important to you.
Yes.
So whether it's an hour or two, just deliberately having conversations with my husband and saying, "Hey, what is your schedule this week? Because I need to get my nails done, or whatever it is." And that was the turning point for me. But it's so easy to get lost. It's so easy to not have that self-care.
It's really true. But what about any regrets, ladies? Any regrets on anything as far as being a mom? Regrets. I don't want to say they're like failures, but just regrets. Like if you were to ask me what was a regret I had, one of the regrets I had as being a mom was I didn't take the time to enjoy it. Oh boy, I felt like, to what you said, Rachel, the anxiety, to what you said, Doctor Blandon. I just going through all those false expectations, hearing the voices from the outside, meaning other people speaking, might not necessarily have been beneficial for me. So one of the regrets I definitely had was not enjoying the moment. So I try to tell people now, enjoy the moment of the pregnancy. If you're pregnant, enjoy the moment. And I think because my mindset was so geared the wrong way, I rushed it along. And now I'm 55. I mean, of course, this is years ago, but I'm 55. I enjoy being a grandmother and a mom, but I really wish I could have had those moments of enjoyment. What about for you, Dr. Blandon?
Again, we are really similar, Lady Price. I think that if I have a regret, I
Hmm.
didn't allow myself to be present in the present.
Yes, that's it.
I was so busy attaining and growing and doing that I missed moments that I'll never get back. And I encourage people to just be where you are in the moment. Put the phone down, turn the TV off, have the conversation, play the game, do the silliness. Just be present in the moment that you're in. Whatever stage you find yourself, just be present there because it won't come back again.
Yeah, so true. What about for you, Rachel? And I know your
Um,
babies are young, but still.
Yeah, so a lot of these words that I'm hearing, I'm receiving this because these
Okay.
are just words of, just
Right.
confirmation for me. But along the same lines, like before I stopped working, I just felt like my main goal was to just go out there, come home with an income and put the kids to bed and get up. And I didn't enjoy those little moments in their
Yep.
infancy and toddler stages. And now, they're not infants and toddlers anymore. But now that I'm home with them, just seeing their personalities develop, and I'm just like, wow, like they're really growing up. And I was forced to take the time, and the past year of the pandemic has really just shown and revealed so much to me, about the type of mother that I do want to be, and just being deliberate and being present and
Yes.
being intentional with spending time with them. And sometimes understanding that some of the behavioral issues are
Hmm.
not necessarily because kids are bad. It's because they want your attention because you're busy
Crying for
doing other.
attention.
Yes.
Yeah, they're
Yes.
crying for attention. So just carving out that time, and one-on-one time too. I mean, I only have two, but I like having time with my oldest one apart from my little one, and time with my little one apart from my oldest one, because you kind of get caught up in just doing everything collectively.
Hmm.
So just being present still. I wish I did that earlier, but it's not too late.
Yep,
And so
that's
that
right.
is definitely something that I regret I didn't do then.
Yeah. And the reason why I brought it up too, ladies, was because I remember my youngest daughter will be 33. It's a shame I got to think about it, but be 33. And she said to me one day, she said, you were always mommy, but you were never mom. And I didn't understand what she meant by that. What she was saying is to what you're saying, both of you are saying, was that I wasn't present. And talking about our regrets. And I'm like, but wait a minute. I was to run when the school called and you needed this and I needed that. And I would make sure you were good. She said, that's all. In other words, it's saying that's part of it, but I needed more. I need it more. So we can just, the three of us, I think we're all definitely saying the same thing. If you're a mom and you're listening, be present, be there, and enjoy the moment. Colette said something, and she chimed in, and she said something her mom said. Colette said, my mom would often say to me, you need to give yourself oxygen, take care of you, because if you don't, how can you give it to your daughter or be fully present? That's interesting that Colette said that. What's some of the things that your mom have said, Rachel, that you can quote?
One thing that I will say, my mother was very big on self-care, very big on self-care. And so she used to always say that there's something about being a woman, taking care of yourself and feeling good about yourself that transcends. And so when you feel good, your home feels good. And I did it, and because I'm of Haitian background, so she said it in her native tongue. And growing up, I'm like, okay, Bobby, okay. And it wasn't until I had my own home and I realized the importance of what she was saying, because it's true. Like on my worst days, you feel that heaviness in the home, and my kids feel it, my husband feels it. And so when I had to come to that realization, and I had to take a step back and reevaluate my priorities and realize, like, I have to pour into myself too, because I'm feeding negativity and all of this negative toxic energy into my kids. And I don't want that for them. I don't want them to remember me as the mommy that's always screaming or always scolding. So just being so intentional of taking care of yourself from the inside out and allowing that to try to transcend to your family is something that she always preached on.
Wow. What about for you, Dr. Blandon?
So I'm a grandma's girl.
Yeah. Okay. Still, that's good.
And my grandmother had many, 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 many sayings. I could give you some that probably are not very Christianese either. But I think what she taught me was to be strong. And that strong was not defined by the presence or absence of tears, but strength was defined by my ability to continue to fight.
Wow. 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 That was good. That was really good. Wow. That's interesting. And the mothers are chiming in tonight. Tiffany said that especially during the pandemic, especially during the pandemic with homeschooling, it was very necessary for her to take care of herself. One of the things I can remember my mom said, now my mom was tough because I had my daughter at 16, and my mom was the type was like, listen, you did it, you're going to deal with it. And I don't know, if some moms, I'm not saying that toughness is necessarily the way to go, but toughness taught me to appreciate, because I had to struggle to get to where I am today. So if you had to say something, I'll start with you, Dr. Blandon. If you had to encourage moms that are listening today, and we're going to honor them because Mother's Day is on Sunday, what are some of the things that you would say to someone that's listening to you right now?
I talk too much, so that's a difficult question. I think I would say to them that you've been chosen for this. This isn't happenstance. This isn't an accident, and you can do this. God has deposited in you everything that you need. It's just a matter of whether or not you're willing to reach in and grab it.
Wow. Thank you. That's powerful. What about for you, Rachel? What would you say to even a young mom that's listening, that's feeling that overwhelming feeling? We talked about anxiety tonight. We talked about feeling like a failure. We talked about, how about the one thing that we could chime in on too after Rachel speaks is sometimes moms feel totally discouraged. What about for you, Rachel?
Any young mother, any mother, to just understand that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not have it all figured out.
Yes.
And even in your mess, there is beauty, even on your worst days as a mother, because every mother that I speak to is like, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And I said, but your kids are alive, they're fed, they look great, they're happy. And guess what? What you're worried about, they're not worried about.
Right.
So understanding that again, it's perception, and it's prioritizing the things that we assume are important and realizing that sometimes they really aren't. And find your village. I think it's so
Yeah.
important for women and mothers to have a village of women and mothers that they can pour into each other, uplift each other, pray for each other, because we weren't created to be alone. We weren't created to go through things alone. And so, just however you could find a support group, a
Mhm.
friend, or anyone to just kind of go back and vent, like one of the members said in the chat, just
Yeah.
how just venting sometimes is all you need to do. So, that is something that I think is extremely important.
Right. That's powerful. We're winding down, Dr. Blandon, and I'll come back to you, Rachel, as well. If you had to, what are some things that you learned about being a mother that you wish you knew before you became a mom?
Girl, make the mistakes. Make the mistakes.
Yeah.
We oftentimes want to stop ourselves from making mistakes. Some of
Mm.
my best lessons were learned when I messed it all the way up. I have relationships with my children born out of what I would consider colossal mess ups.
Mm. Mm.
So sis, make the mistakes. It's okay.
It's okay to make the mistake. You
It is
heard it right
okay.
here on Real Talk. What about you, Rachel? What's something that you wish you knew before you became a mother?
Take all them naps. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. I wish I wasn't so quick. Like,
I
why was I
can't.
just trying to stay up? If I would have just taken 100 more naps to carry me over. No, but just rest, and relaxation. I think we are so quick in our youth, and I know I'm still. I mean, we all are young. You guys look phenomenal. Period. But it's always this idea that you got to keep going and you can't be still, and sometimes you
Right.
have to be still. So absolutely, if I wish I could just say, listen, it's okay to have those moments of rest and relaxation. And we preach on self-care, but self-care is important when you're young, before motherhood too.
It is.
Um, because I think that carries you a lot in motherhood. I think there's a balance that's already established if you were doing and practicing those type of behaviors
Yeah.
before. So
Yeah. Wow. That I have to say that one cracked me up because that's probably what me and Dr. Blandon got a kick out of that one because I think that was probably one of the things that I did not embrace very well. Understanding that it's okay sometime to take your rest. Sometimes we can keep going so much like the energizing bunny. Just you got to keep going. You got to keep going. And then when you burn out, people look at you like, well, I don't understand what the problem is. And then the other side is sometimes you have to show people that you're entitled to rest.
yeah, yeah.
I think that can make people a little uncomfortable sometimes, but it's really true. You do have to take that time to rest. It has been such a joy and a pleasure having you two on Real Talk tonight. We talked about some real issues dealing with motherhood. We went way back. We came back forward. We really just really engaged, and I would love for us to do a part 2 to talking about being a mom because I think we all three can admit, and those that are listening, it's so multifaceted in being a mother. You wear so many hats, you do so many things, you learn so many wisdom tools. And this has been really, really a great show. One last thing, I'm going to have my guests say one more thing before we close the show on tonight. Leave one last nugget, Dr. Blandon, and then I'll get one nugget from Rachel, and then we'll shut it down.
I think I want to stay on the vein of self-care.
Okay.
And no is a complete sentence. Give your self permission to say no without any qualifiers.
Wow, that is true. Wait a minute, Rachel, wait. Wait, I think you gotta write something in the chat. I'll guess before Rachel speaks. I think the guests need to put a in the chat. Because it's true. Sometimes you feel like, thank you, Tiffany. Tiffany went, I like that. Yes, yes. Thank you for that. It's really true. You got to do that. Go ahead, Rachel.
A gem is have boundaries. So to the same on the same line of thread, boundaries are healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Boundaries are okay, and stick to your truth in
Mm-hmm.
those boundaries, whatever they may be for you. However, you don't have to justify anything or explain anything. You understand why you feel, and I think as mothers, we always have this strong gut instinct, and
Yeah,
sometimes we can't word it, but we know why we
You
feel how we
know,
feel.
yeah. That's that discernment. Yes.
Like, why would you so? Don't worry. It's listen. This is what I feel. So having those boundaries and sticking to them is key.
Yes. But ladies, thank you again. Please, I will talk offline. We'll go backstage soon, but I have to invite you both back. This has been such a great show tonight. Women have chimed in, moms have chimed in. Thank you so much to our viewing audience. Thank you for liking. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for sharing. And for those of you that are moms, I want to wish you a beautiful, beautiful Mother's Day on Sunday. Come enjoy your day. Allow your children to just go ahead and bless you and love on you. It's truly a blessing. For those that don't have a mom, it's okay too, because you have moms that are praying for you, and only God can fill that void. But we're grateful that you can celebrate with someone too. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Real Talk with Jean Price. We'll see you next time. Have a good
The
night.
pressure to do it all right is real. And there's not one mother out there, there's not one mother today in this audience, I bet, who has never felt guilty because she yelled at her kid, or she fed her kid junk food, or she went somewhere without her kid, for example, to work. And remember, this is all just the mom part of having it all. You're also expected to be a successful businesswoman, a loving spouse, a devoted daughter, a good friend, and please do not remember the most important of all things. Look like you've never given life in the first place. The perfect mother does not exist. She's a Frankenstein. She's put together by old 18th century ideas. Instagram images with lots of filters on them, bad Hollywood movies, and friends who fail to tell the truth about their own struggles.